Just a quick overview of the rules again. There'll be 4 questions in this debate. Candidates will have 1 minute each to answer the question, 30 seconds each for rebuttal if they'd like. There will be no opening statements, but candidates will have 1 minute each for a closing statement. We'll begin the questioning by alphabetical order of the candidates' names. After the first question, we'll move down the alphabet for the next ones. Now, to our candidates. Matt Krause is a state representative and was a constitutional attorney. Phil Sorrells is a former judge of Tarrant County Criminal Court number 10. He also worked as an assistant district attorney under former DA Tim Curry. Mollee Westfall is a former judge of the 371st Criminal District Court. She also worked as an assistant district attorney for the Tarrant County DA's office. Rachel will kick off this round of questions.
Representative Krause, you'll start us off. The Tarrant County District Attorney handles both civil and criminal cases while managing a staff of over 300 people. What is your experience practicing law, and how is that relevant to the position? Please be specific.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you again for hosting this and having us here today so we can answer these questions for y'all. My background is constitutional litigation. For several years, I ran the Texas office for a national nonprofit constitutional litigation firm where we were in state and federal court all over the country, defending and upholding the First Amendment and 14th Amendment rights of citizens all over the country. And so that's the background, the legal background that I bring. Also, having been a state legislator for almost the last decade, we've been writing the laws that our criminal attorneys, civil attorneys, and others have been enforcing and using in the courtrooms for that time period. And so I think my constitutional law background serves me really well, especially on the civil side. A lot of people don't know that there's a huge civil component to the district attorney's office as well. So that's where my experience really comes in and help. As far as managing 300 people, I've been blessed to serve with 149 other individuals in the State House, all different walks of life, all different beliefs, all different backgrounds, and managing those kind of relationships and those kind of different personalities to come together for the good of Texas, I think will allow me to do very well in the DA's office.
Which way do y'all want to go? Put us in this order so that...
Is Phil next?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. For the past 30 years, my entire career as a lawyer is spent down at the courthouse. So that's the extent of my experience. The good thing is that's where the DA's office is. It's down at the courthouse. I've practiced in the DA's office. I was fortunate to come out of law school, and Tim Curry offered me a job, and I've worked for Mr. Tim Curry before I was elected to my judgeship. So I have 30 years of experience. I've tried cases from theft up to murder. I've presided over hundreds of trials. I know what it takes to be the district attorney. I've been an assistant district attorney, and I've been a judge. So that's all I've given my entire career, my entire legal career to this county working at the courthouse. And I'm prepared to move to the district attorney's office to make a bigger difference.
Again, my name is Mollee Westfall. It's great to be here. Thank you again to Fort Worth Report and to KERA for hosting this event. I spent 15 years as a district judge in Tarrant County. A felony district judge oversees a caseload of about 2,000 felony cases, supervises 1,000 felons on probation. Also serves on the juvenile board, where we oversee the running of the juvenile court and its budget. I've chaired the juvenile board. I have handled a serious personnel inquiry as chair of the juvenile board, and I've worked with the civil division as well as overseeing the criminal lawyers in my court. I've worked with the civil division. They've advised me on personnel issues. They advise the county on contractual issues, so I've worked with them when we had contractual issues in front of the juvenile board. So I've worked with or above every single part of what the DA's office does. And I've done that for felony criminal cases, the most serious and complicated cases our criminal justice system handles.
And you now have the opportunity for rebuttals.
This is our 9th forum.
We could probably actually give each other's answers at this point. That might even be more fun for y'all. So,
We'll start with Judge Sorrells now. Fort Worth and Tarrant County will be thrust into a national spotlight when the Aaron Dean trial is scheduled to start this spring. Regardless of the outcome, the trial is likely to be a painful process for our entire community. How would you handle high-profile cases like the Aaron Dean trial in a way that promotes fairness and inspires confidence in the judicial system?
Well, you have to just go with the facts. You look at the facts of the case, you can't be concerned about what is swirling around any kind of offense. It doesn't matter who the defendant is or who the victim is in the case. Everybody, every case should be treated the same. You can't be concerned, because once you get concerned about things that are external from that case, then you start making decisions based upon those external factors. And that's not justice. Justice is what is contained within the facts of the case. So I would concern myself only with the facts of the case, not concerned with what, the chips will fall where they may, but you have to only focus on the facts. Once you get focused on, well, I wonder how this is going to play in the media, I wonder how this is going to do at home, you can't be concerned about that. You just do what's right. The number one purpose of the DA's office is to see that justice is done, and that's what my focus will be.
Am I next? Okay. I've handled a number of high-profile trials in my time as a district judge. Also, when I was an assistant district attorney, I've had cameras in the courtroom multiple times. And I can tell you, while it does change the dynamic and everyone is concerned about it, it is very important to continue the trial process just as you've begun for every single case, including cases where there are cameras in the courtroom or not. You need to handle that trial exactly as you would handle any other trial. Having said that, the community deserves transparency in cases that are of high concern. As a judge, I was always very open to having cameras or the media in my courtroom because the community deserves to know what we're doing in our criminal courts. And if they're interested in a case, they should be able to watch that case and to see all of it. But as district attorney, you do need to handle it just as you do any other case.
The morning that Sharen Wilson announced that she wasn't running again, somebody asked her very early on, before any declared candidates, before anybody was in the race, said, who would you like to see replace you? And she said Matt Krause, and that surprised me as well as a lot of people. And so I called her and I asked her why, and she said really the DA's office has evolved over the last several years, especially in your larger urban counties. You're no longer prosecuting in the courtroom. It's more of a policy, political leadership position. She said your experience and your involvement in the political arena, the policy arena, the last near decade, I think makes you a perfect fit for what the needs and demands are of the current DA's office. And I think that goes into this trial, because you're going to have somebody who can be the face of law enforcement, be the face of what's going on to the community in situations like this. It takes a little bit of political maneuvering. It takes a lot of that, because at the end of the day, as Phil said, you're seeking to ensure justice. As long as justice is done, you've done your job, and then you figure out how you talk to the people and communicate that clearly to them. You're not worried about tipping the scales one way or the other, but you do have to communicate that to the people, to everybody in the county.
And you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal, or if you want to elaborate a little bit more on your own points.
Well, I just don't agree about the fact that the DA's office is a policy office. That's exactly what it's not. If you want to set policy, you go down to Austin. That's where they make policy. In the DA's office, you follow the law. You don't make the law. That's what they're doing in these counties, what you're seeing on TV when you see over in Dallas where they're not enforcing the law, because the policy of the DA in Dallas is he's not going to prosecute anything over $750 if you steal it. If it's less than $750, he's not going to prosecute you. That's a policy, and that's not what the DA's office is about. It's about following the law.
Judge Westfall, this question will be for you. In Texas, district attorneys have leeway in whether or not to bring a charge on some low-level crimes to prevent clogging up the courts with non-violent offenses. Take marijuana, for example. Some counties, including Tarrant, have decided to put a policy in place so that people caught with small amounts of marijuana don't have to go to court and can have the charge cleared from their records. What specific policies do you propose to keep our courts running efficiently?
Well, I think your question alludes to two different things. Number one, the Tarrant County DA's office has recently instituted cite and release for possession of marijuana under 2 ounces. That is not a program that that does not prosecute those cases. It just that we don't take those particular people to the Tarrant County Jail and book them in. They get to cited, released, they have summons to court, kind of like a traffic ticket. Summons to court in 2 or 3 weeks, you're supposed to show up, and if you don't, you get a warrant. However, we do have diversion programs for small drug cases, for first-time offenders, people who have no criminal history, who would not be best served by being prosecuted but diverted from the criminal justice system. And so both of those things need to happen. We need to not clog our jails with possession of marijuana under 2. We also need to divert the people who can be diverted from the criminal justice system, who don't need to be prosecuted, they just need to be educated.
Yeah, I agree, Molly. I think that's a great answer, because you're right. The diversionary courts, I think, are a good model for the modern criminal justice system, whether it's our veterans courts, it's our GWI courts. In the Texas House, I was honored to be a part of one of the founding members of the Texas House Criminal Justice Reform Caucus, and it was 5 Republicans and 5 Democrats that came together to form that caucus, because we said, how can we better serve our communities and how better can we serve the citizens of Texas in our criminal justice system? If you, as Molly was alluding to, if you just throw somebody into jail when they shouldn't be there, what are you doing? You're incentivizing them for a life of crime later on. Why? Because we make it harder for them to get a place to live when they get out. We make it harder for them to get a job when they get out. So what do when they can't find housing or a job? They go back into crime to try to make ends meet. And so the more we can divert people away who we're not, as they say, you put people in jail that you're scared of, not that you're mad at, right? And so the more we can do to divert people who don't need to be in our jails, saves taxpayer money, saves them the ability from getting taken out of society so they don't have to get reintegrated later on. We can actually make our system more fair, more just, more equitable, and better for the taxpayers by doing that.
Okay, your question was about marijuana and small crimes such as that. The one thing about that Molly had said about the cite and release program that has been instituted, it's really the decision of the police agency to determine whether they're going to take advantage of the cite and release program or not. If the police want to arrest somebody for marijuana and put them in jail, then that's what they're going to do. It's really not up to the district attorney's office to decide about cite and release. That program is available, and the courts are set up to where if there is a cite and release, then we can send them notification for them to show up to court. But it's really up to the police agency. I don't think Fort Worth does cite and release, just a couple of other agencies do that. We've got to figure out, I guess the best way to stop the overcrowding in the jail is if we could just talk to the criminals and convince them that they could quit committing crime, then we wouldn't have an overcrowding problem. But just like at home with your children, you're not going to stop correcting them or disciplining them for when they do things wrong. The law is there, and we're going to enforce the law if I'm the district attorney.
I mean, do you have time for rebuttals or elaboration?
Actually, the Tarrant County DA's office did have to work with Arlington Police Department, who set up cite and release in order to make that program work, because it was a completely different way of handling cases. Generally, cases get filed into the DA's office after there's an arrest. So we had to set up a different procedure to alert the courts that we had these people who needed to be summoned to court later on. So yes, it's within the discretion of the police department. They always have to work hand in hand with the DA's office. They're our most important partner, so we had to work together on that.
And I would note, we just spent the last 4 or 5 minutes talking about policy, right? So to say that there's not very much policy involved in the DA's office, I think undersells the fact and underscores the importance of having a policy background and that policy insight. And again, I'll take Sharen Wilson's word for it any day of the week that that's what that job entails. But I do think it's important to have that policy understanding, that policy background. So even though the law may not prescribe it, there's certain things you can do within the confines of the law, either for good or for bad. But we'll use that for good here in Tarrant County.
And that's the law about cite and release has been codified. It's been there. It's been available for multiple years. It was just recently that Arlington decided to take advantage of it, but it's something that the police department still is the one that makes that ultimate decision whether they're going to follow that and you take advantage of that law or not. And then the DA's office has the determination of, well, they did cite and release, so now how are we going to make sure that that person comes to court?
Representative Krause, you'll be first. How would you rate the performance of departing District Attorney Sharen Wilson? What specifically would you do differently?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think Sharen Wilson's done an outstanding job in so many ways. Her focus on elder abuse and child abuse, her specializations and focus on that, I think have done a world of good in Tarrant County. We've got so much more work to do on those areas, but she's really put us on a path. The conviction integrity unit that she started is fantastic, and that's something as the next Tarrant County District Attorney, I would continue and make sure that we put in full force and as many resources as we need. So I think there's some things that she's done that's going to leave a legacy. In terms of what's different, we're just different individuals. We've got different personalities. We've got different ways we approach things. So different's not always bad, but different is different. So I would approach the job in a much different fashion than she would, but that doesn't have to do necessarily with the substance of what she's put into play. I know for me personally, I'm big on building teams. I played sports my entire life, and having that team morale, that team mentality, all on the same page, all following the same vision is very important to me, and so that's something I would implement as the next district attorney.
Yeah, Matt, as you said about the conviction integrity, I think that's a great thing that Sharen put together. If you can't, it's just like our elections. If you cannot be confident of that conviction, then it undermines other convictions. If somebody believes that they were wrongly convicted and they can produce the evidence and we can investigate that and make the determination that they were in fact wrongly convicted, we want to correct that mistake. You know, science has moved forward in such a manner that there are new ways that we can make those determinations. And if somebody brings that presentation to us, we want to investigate. And I think she did a great job in doing that. But like I said, because if you do not follow through with those, then people are just going to think, well, somebody was wrongly convicted, and they'll just make those statements, and it undermines all the other convictions that you have. Like Matt also said, things are, you know, you're just a different person. You're going to do things differently. I build teams. I want to make sure that everybody knows what they do. I want to give people the responsibility to do their job, give the ability for them to do their job, and let them do their job.
I really admire what Sharen has done with the vulnerable victims that the office handles the prosecution of the crimes perpetrated against them. Child abuse is one area. I was a child abuse prosecutor when I was an assistant district attorney, and so that's a passion of mine. Sharen has done a fabulous job with that. With domestic violence, she's also put a big emphasis on elder abuse that I want to continue and build on, particularly elder abuse involving scam and frauds. She's done the first of its kind sexual assault prosecution, sexual assault of adults. And that's another vulnerable population that's been overlooked. It's very hard to try those cases, and I very much admire what she's done there. I also like what she's done with human trafficking. She has a vertical prosecution team in charge of human trafficking. I'd like to roll out that vertical prosecution to violent crime as well, because we have violent crime up across Tarrant County, up across the nation, and if we have prosecutors working with the detectives at the time of investigation, we'll have better results.
And you each have 30 seconds for a rebuttal if you want to, or if you want to elaborate more on any of your statements.
I just want to say thank you to the time guy. I've watched you now for 2 things, and you are on top of it, man. It's not an easy job, and you are on it, so well done.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Then we'll move on to closing statements, and let's begin with Mr. Krause.
All right. Thank you again for your time today. I'm here with my beautiful wife, Jenny, and our 5 kids are at home. We're excited to get back to them. But as Tim said earlier, this is the reason that I'm running, is to make sure that they have the same great community, county, state, and country to grow up in that I did. And I'll tell you something else. During the campaign process, I've really gotten to know and like Phil and Mollee. To be honest with you, they have some strengths and experiences that I don't have. But I also think I have some strengths and experiences that they don't. So I think the issue for the voters is, which kind of experiences do you want? Theirs obviously comes from the more traditional route, former DA, former judge. Mine comes from the policy arena. And I think having that ability, that insight, and being tested through those fires of legislation really makes you well suited for the current demands of the DA's office. I think if you look, especially in a Republican primary, I've fought for the last 10 years on every issue that's important to a Republican primary voter. But you'll also look that I've also fought for issues beyond that. Matthew Hall and I see him back there. We've had a lot of good talks on education and other things. We may not have agreed, but we've listened to each other with respect, and we've made things work. And that's what I'll commit to you to do as your next Tarrant County DA, and thank you for the opportunity.
Ms. Westfall.
I often have wondered, looked at myself sort of outside of myself with wonder that I'm even sitting here today. My earliest memories are living on a cotton farm with my dad. I was the first in my family to get an advanced professional degree. I was a product of public education all the way through. I was offered a national merit scholarship that enabled me to attend the University of Texas at Austin and a full ride scholarship to Texas Tech University School of Law. And I never anticipated that I would be a judge and do the things that I've done. However, I have been a crime fighter in this county for 25 years. I've handled the most serious cases and crimes, both as an assistant district attorney and as a district judge. I am ready to take on this role. I am ready to keep this community safe. That is my background, that's my experiences, and that is what I'm going to bring to the district attorney's office as your next district attorney, and I'm asking for your vote.
Well, she's checking the timer to make sure he's ready to roll. Thanks for letting us come here. Like Mollee said, this is our ninth time to be together and to give these presentations. I'm here with my wife, Susan, and you know, I've had 30 years of experience, as I've told you, 30 years in the courthouse. That's my entire career. I've devoted my life to this county, both as a prosecutor and as a judge, and people in this county are supporting me. People from if you're wanting to look see who's the conservative candidate up here, you don't have to look very far. You just look for the DWI conservative voter guy. He interviewed all three of us and he said, you know, it's Phil Sorrells who's the conservative candidate out of the three of us. You can look at other conservative groups here in town and you'll find they're saying Phil Sorrells is the conservative candidate for this job. I'm the one with the 30 years of experience. You want to look at elected officials, people that are in the public eye. You can look all the way down from precinct chair who's supporting me all the way to President Trump. I have his endorsement all the way from President Trump all the way down to precinct chairs. And I think that you'll find that I'm the one that you should elect. Thank you.
And that concludes closing statements and the debate among Republican candidates for district attorney. Thanks to all of you.